I find it really funny that Trump just like flies off the handle and will just make new numbers up. I respect that. I mean, it's good to be the king, you know? Just YOLO. Make up new shit. Be like, yep, 300. I've decided 300% tariffs. I've decided 400% tariffs.
Specifically around China. Megan.
Hey, David, absolutely. I just got off the phone with a White House official, and I need to clarify, they need to clarify that the new effective tariff rate against China.
Chatter's brain dead law. China has hardly been truly communist since the Deng era. Yeah, I know, dude. Yes, you have a real method for a transitional socialist state. You just haven't implemented it yet here in the United States of America. But look alive, everybody. When Chatter H Tom PK23 implements and institutes real transitional socialism in his grand vision, everyone will say, that's it. Any day now, he's going to bring it. I'm not saying that's necessary, bro, bad, bro, damn. No one thinks China is a communist state. What are you talking about? China is not a communist state. China is, in their words, a transitional socialist state that is reacting to market forces, global trade, and the material conditions that exist currently. Also, learning from the mistakes of the USSR, former transitional socialist states that have perished. Conservatives do? No, they don't, because when push comes to shove, everyone will literally present how bountiful capitalism has been to China. They literally will say, they will turn around and say, capitalism has uplifted billions of people, eradicated global poverty. That's China. They're only talking about Chinese statistics. Remove China from the equation, and the global south across the board is not better off than they were prior to the uplifting. How can the Communist Party not be communist? There has literally never been a singular communist party in the history of communism that has actually been able to implement communism. That's not a thing. Communism is supposed to be the ultimate goal to arrive at. It is not what is happening right now. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, I know. The French Commune. Okay, shut up. We're not talking about that. This is not a no true Scotsman argument either. This is just literally the delusions of the people on the opposing side of the argument. I have no further questions. Okay. This isn't like cope to be like true communism hasn't been tried or implemented. It's like the Chinese government doesn't say they've implemented communism. They say they're a transitional socialist state that works within the current confines of global finance capital with Chinese characteristics.
China effective today is actually 145%, not 120%.
Like, yeah, we have a communist party here. We have multiple communist parties here in the United States of America. Do we have communism? No.
5%, as they told us yesterday. This is not a new shift. This is based, I want to make clear, on a close reading of the executive order. I have it here. When they amended their executive order yesterday, they changed the rate, the reciprocal rate, so-called, from 84% to 125%. But that comes on top of the fentanyl rate that was already in place this term of 20% against China. So a White House official confirmed to me it is correct to add those numbers together, making the new rate that President Trump has added in tariffs against China so far this term to 145%. A big jump there from where we thought we were even yesterday and the start of the week as well. These numbers just keep increasing. And as you guys know, you do have to add that 145% to any tariffs that were already in place before President Trump took office this term. That's the Section 301 tariffs from his first term, as well as anything else that was already in place at baseline. But now the new rate, when you add all these figures together.
I find it really funny that Trump just like flies off the handle and will just make new numbers up. I respect that. I mean, it's good to be the king, you know? Just YOLO. Make up new be like, yep, 300. I've decided 300% tariffs. I've decided 400% tariffs. Respect. Bigger number, bigger tariff. He's killing it.
For this term that they've added against China is 145% on Chinese imports.
Why do you support moving manufacturing to America but not support Trump's tariffs? I don't know, because I'm not a moron. Because if you don't build a manufacturing base here in the United States of America, there is no trade to protect. There is no manufacturing to protect in that process, don't you think?
Imports. Guys.
Megan, a very important clarification. Thank you for that. It does make you wonder, yeah, because I think the broad assumption was 125% included, perhaps, the 20% already from fentanyl. I asked this question earlier of Eamon, but I'd love to ask you to view as well. In terms of exemptions, we were talking to an analyst earlier, of course, about Apple, where it may really be so important for a company like that to get an exemption, given how many iPhones are made in China. Do we have any expectations and or do you have any reporting around what may or may not happen when it comes to that?
The best that we know is that the president said yesterday he was willing to consider some exemptions for some companies, but he didn't want to give any specifics on what it would require. So we don't know anything further than that. We know that Tim Cook has been in touch with this White House, in touch with this president. He's been down to Mar-a-Lago, been trying to win some of those exemptions here, as have other companies. But we just don't know yet. What I will say, despite just how high this China tariff is, now even higher than we initially thought, there is some more optimism now because companies like Apple that have production in other countries as well, they can at least move around. But I will say that, you know,
every number is made up. The tariff number is made up. It keeps increasing. The number of investment is totally made up. Every other day, Donald Trump will be like, we have gotten $5 quintillion from Apple. Tim Apple called me yesterday, said we're donating $5 quintillion. Numbers like you've never heard. Numbers you've never seen before. Everything's computer. Every day, billionaires are calling me saying, Mr. President, I'm going to give you $7 trillion. That's right.
There was softer language from the president yesterday that at least he's considering exemptions. We didn't get that before. And if passed is
1 million countries have called me. Countries you've never heard of. Lesotho. They called me. They said, Penguin Island. They called me. They said, Mr. President, the penguins are reeling with the tariffs. We will buy American. The penguins want to drive F-150s, Mr. President. Numbers you've never heard of. Cambodia. They called me. They said, Mr. President, please give us more. We love the bombs. We love it. We will buy the bombs that you will use on us, Mr. President.
His prologue in the first term, we did get some. So I would expect a lot more to come on that front.
I mean, a few things. The rate is so...
The duality of chat. This terrible impression is part of why I dislike you personally. Your Trump impression is one of my favorites, Lamau. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the 22-month subscriber.
Gargantuan compared to, first of all, the other tariff rates that we have and everything else. It makes me think that they're bringing them to the table to a deal, because at some point it's just unsustainable to have trade this way. And then their tariff rates now on our exports into China are what? Above 80%?
84, right?
They're at 84%, yep. And they're doing all these other things. The TikTok deal, for example, is on ice. The president acknowledged that yesterday. The companies that have all been added to the...
Yeah. Man, dude, this man is going to make everyone under the age of 35 a Maoist. Okay? I swear to God. 1, destroying global trade, but simply trying to China over, causing a massive inflationary crisis, and then simultaneously taking away one of the major treats that China has given to everyone, especially under the age of 35. Yo, the children will rise up as Maoist, dude. Anyway.
Blacklist, the entities list. I saw a headline this morning that China's buying some soybeans from Brazil. That's a hit to U.S. farmers. So China can do a lot more. I agree with you that I think with rates this high, you would think there have to be negotiations, and potentially we'll see those in the coming days. But I've been kind of amazed over the past few days just how little conversation has been going on between the U.S. and China. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of dialogue at this point. We've seen the tit for tat escalating without the leaders, at least, getting on a phone call.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税。
Lin Jian getting incredible amounts of TV time. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian coming out once again swinging. The United States is still imposing tariffs on China, he says. And China is firmly opposed to such bullying. China will absolutely not accept pressure, threats, and blackmail. This is what he said yesterday and the day prior. That is not the right way to deal with China. If the U.S. really wants to talk, it should show an attitude of equality, respect, and reciprocity. If the United States ignores the interests of the two countries and the international community and insists on fighting a tariff war and a trade war, China will certainly accompany it to the end. The United States, driven by selfish interests, has weaponized tariffs as a means of exerting maximum pressure and seeking unilateral benefits. This severely infringes upon the legitimate rights and interests. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think that J.D. Vance calling Chinese peasants, calling the entire Chinese manufacturing base like peasants, did a real number. Like that was definitely the wrong move. I'm serious. I feel like that's one of those things where, you know, you're up the bag. You think you can behave in this undiplomatic manner because you're sitting atop this throne, but you can dookie on Ukraine all day, every day. That's a very different equation than saying that to China, especially China, considering its history, especially considering the motivations. It got people here in Europe angry, and that's weird because we racist this constitutes a grave violation of the World Trade Organization rules, seriously undermines the rules-based multilateral trading system, and poses a major threat to the stability of the global economic order. It is a blatant act that defies international norms and runs counter to the entire world. Speaking of cutting the throat, the U.S. threats and blackmail against the rest of the world with tariffs is a real attempt to choke the throat of other countries and bully them into making a compromise or concessions. The relationship between China and Spain is a vital component of the relations between China and the EU. Last year, the total trade between China and Spain topped US 50 billion, and China and Spain's exports to China grew by 4.3%. In recent years, the bilateral cooperation on the new energy industry has boosted green and low carbon development. This is China's response to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that Spain is getting closer to China is like cutting your own throat. That's what Scott Bessent said, and this is their response. The two countries maintain communication in the multilateral cooperation and jointly uphold the international system. With the UN at its core and the WTO-centered multilateral trading system, just like the friendly ties between China and other countries, the cooperation between China and Spain always serves as a driving force for both countries' economic growth and delivers tangibly for the two peoples and contributes to world stability and development. Europe stands with China. Eurasia will rise. Don't you dare call us U.S. vassals. We hate you guys much more than China. Yeah, you, as the average European citizen, might, but your leadership demonstrates a totally different set of standards. Okay, this is what you must understand. Although we have this notion where European countries that are supposed to maintain this liberal democracy, the attitude towards liberal democracy, that they are supposed to protect liberal democracy. Liberal democracy, I think, has its limitations. Clearly, I think more and more people will come to that conclusion that your leadership actually does not represent your values. As contradictions heighten, you will recognize that you are not all that different from a Gulf nation, for example. You are not all that different, that simply liberal democracy has been a lie. Here in the United States of America, the only thing that stops us from recognizing this reality is affordable treats, is treat affordability. As long as there is seemingly the feeling that conditions are getting better because treats are more accessible than ever before, and we can keep purchasing cheap TVs year over year, we forget that a lot of our material needs are not met by our government, regardless of how much we want them. And I think this is a reality that other countries will soon have to come to terms with as well. The interests of the public are not met by the so-called public servants that you elect into positions of power.